The chair moves that the committee adopt the articles of impeachment against Warren Kenneth Paxton, Attorney General of the state of Texas, as embodied in the draft resolution, and direct the chair to file that resolution with the chief clerk of the House. The clerk will call the roll.
Chair Murr?
Aye.
Vice Chair Johnson?
Yes.
Representative Guerin?
Yes.
Representative Longoria?
Yes.
Representative Spiller?
Aye.
There being 5 ayes, 0 nays, 0 present not voting, the motion prevails.
Oof, and what a motion it is. Clandestine investigation. Warren calls for resignation. Allegations of gaveling while intoxicated. Yeah, the Texas GOP has got big problems, and Vox has got the headline. Check this out. Texas far-right Attorney General could soon be impeached. That's right, that's what that vote was going on. Ken Paxton. Oh, well, he is finally in a situation where he may actually be held accountable. Because after running a stealth investigation, a Republican-controlled House committee in Texas has now recommended this man, Governor Greg Abbott's right hand, for impeachment. Now this more per Vox. The committee, which launched a secret investigation into Paxton in March, issued 20 articles of impeachment for the state's top prosecutor after outlining at a hearing earlier in the week how he likely violated many state laws, abused the power of his office for his own gain, and squandered office funds. Now, the House committee, which voted unanimously, as you saw in the opening video, to impeach, well, they brought some receipts on Paxton's past alleged criming, and they really said what was up in terms of that 20-count indictment. Yeah, watch this.
So you have told us that, and we are all familiar with the fact that state policy for the state of Texas in regards to charities is to look out for their best interests. We treat them as something that is benevolent and they're out there to help many different causes. And when they get into a lawsuit, there's actually a framework in place where the OAG is notified of that lawsuit and they determine whether or not this charity needs assistance for the benefit of the charity. And what you have just told us is not only was policy not followed, but then the Attorney General's office got involved and immediately worked against the charity to try to mediate something for less than half of what was already mediated.
That is what the evidence shows.
Yikes, Paxton, screwing over charities, not a good look. Also, we know this per Vox. Across several hours of testimony Wednesday, the House panel laid out in excruciating detail the case that Paxton had committed felony offenses and abuse of official capacity, misuse of public information, and misapplication of fiduciary property. That's for allegedly directing some of his senior staff to do $72,000 worth of taxpayer-funded work for his donor and friend, Austin real estate investor Nate Paul, providing Paul with an FBI file related to an investigation of him and contracting $25,000 in outside counsel duties to the Attorney General's office to do legal work primarily for Paul. Yeah, that sounds like it's a big problem. And not to also mention, but the very Mary Paxton has been caught up in a sordid affair with a woman, and he also happens to be under investigation for a securities fraud felonious criming situation since 2015, and he has been indicted, but he just hasn't been taken to trial over these 8 years, and that's likely because he's been in office. Now, how did the AG respond as far as this recommendation for for impeachment went? Well, Paxton seemed to handle it by sending his attorney from his office to argue in court, the court of public opinion, that is.
Proposed impeachment can only be about conduct since the most recent election. The voters have spoken. They want Ken Paxton. The voters want Ken Paxton. And this committee, by investigating him, by not allowing us to be heard here today, by never reaching out to us at any time during this investigative process, is trying to thwart the will of the voters.
Oh, that's cute, because it seems that Paxton has been taking the voters advantage of and also their resources. It really does seem like this man has been able to run amok for a number of years while he has been in office, but is finally in a position where he may actually be held accountable. Does this sound accurate to you, Mondale?
This is almost like if this was Hollywood, we'd be like, it's too far-fetched. Like, it's too much going on. No one is gonna be responsible for this much mishap. But count on Texas to make it so. The idea that his attorney's argument is that you can only argue things from this election or before, since this election happened. Not that he's not guilty of any of this, but it's too late, too late. This is ridiculous. I'm gonna tell you what's going on here. We've seen an unchecked party control a state for 30 plus years. The Republican Party had everybody hoodwinked, well, most everybody hoodwinked with the idea that they had family values and they were the party of moral compasses. And we're finding out they're just like Trump. All over the board, up and down this country, we see Republicans showing up in manners that resemble that of Donald Trump. Now we know why they were fighting so hard about Donald Trump, because they were actually covering themselves up. Projecting much is what was going on and is going on in Texas right now. The tragedy of all of this is this guy is using the Attorney General office as if he is the mob. He's turning over files that the FBI had on people, citizens, to these citizens. This is beyond ridiculous. And I think if that's not a felonious charge, it damn sure should be. And the idea that we are sitting here talking about this and this person is still in office, still the top cop in that state, is crazy to me.
Oh, absolutely. And I love that despite all of this criming, he manages to find plenty of time to ensure that he is oppressing the trans community, engaging in all sorts of antics that oppress marginalized people. And the fact that he has gone unchecked for so long, it really does speak volumes in terms of the political landscape, but also it makes you wonder, how did we even get here where his own party in this Republican-controlled legislature is finally up here serving him up for some comeuppance? And so when we ask these questions, one thing we want to consider is that generally when people speak out like this, it's usually for their own personal interest and gain. Watch this.
In 2020, senior members of this guy's own office came forward alleging he committed bribery, abuse of office, and other potential crimes. The Department of Justice is investigating those claims. Then some of those aides who came forward to blow the whistle were fired and subsequently filed a lawsuit alleging improper retaliation. Earlier this year, Paxton settled with the whistleblowers for $3.3 million, money he asked the legislature to give him out of taxpayer funds.
Yeah, it doesn't really seem like it's so much personal gain as here, people just got tired of his nonsense because the Texas House took issue with Paxton's public demand for legislature to pay for his work misconduct, that $3.3 million settlement. And that seems to be why it launched this investigation. And so when the House Speaker named Dave Phelan, well, when he fired off the allegations against Paxton earlier this week, well, Paxton pushed back, claiming that Phelan was drunk while gaveling. Check this out.
Mr. Campbell sent an amendment. The amendment is acceptable to the author. Is there objection to the opposite amendment? And the chair has none. The amendment is adopted. The chair recognizes Mr. Johnson of Harris. Mr. Johnson of Harris to speak in opposition to the bill.
Yeah, that might have had a blood alcohol level that wasn't, just any kind of legislative duty. And to kind of give you a comparison, this is what Phelan usually sounds like.
Mr. Smith, there is a legislative and congressional precedent governing the consideration of articles of impeachment for the Texas House.
Yeah, the man knows how to speak. And in fact, I've watched several pieces of footage where he sounds like he could definitely run an auction. So for the reasons of the slurs, I really don't know what's going on, but I do know that Paxton decided to leverage that situation with the House Speaker slurring off about the allegations against Paxton. And he called for Phelan to resign. Check out this. Yeah, Paxton went to Twitter calling for him to step down. He says, of course, with profound disappointment, he is going to call on the speaker to go ahead and pack up his bags. And of course, that's in the wake of Phelan, or with Paxton being told to pack up his bags. Anyways, I doubt the House Speaker is going to be stepping down anytime soon, but it definitely appears that he'll be leading the march against Paxton. Now, as for what's next, the House is going to vote on whether to impeach Paxton. And they're going to do this by Monday. So they'll be spending the holiday weekend possibly mulling over whether to put their AG up in terms of trial. Because if they move to impeach, that's exactly what's happening. The Texas Attorney General would temporarily step down from his duties while the Senate holds a trial over him. And after that, well, you'd need 2/3 majority in both chambers in order to formally remove Paxton from office. Whether that will happen, we will have to see, because even though the Republicans in Texas definitely have control, it's a question of who is still on Paxton's side and who is really tired of his mess, like the rest of us out here. Mondale.
Yeah, I mean, wishful thinking is by Monday, this guy will be removed from office. However, we know this Texas is a Trump state, even though it's trending 7+ points to Democrats lately. Trump Republicans still run that state, and there may be a rebuke, but they will not remove this AG for so many reasons. And also, unfortunately, me and my political mind think the Democratic Party will squander this opportunity to go in Texas and actually, win over some Republicans that are tired of this ridiculousness that exists in the current state of their party. By being themselves and not investing early in minority voters. Here's the sad part about it. We are living in a state, and I'm talking about the state of the United States, where an elected official can settle a private lawsuit and then tell taxpayers, you're gonna pay for this. I don't know in any other nation where this would happen. I mean, we might as well just go back to a monarch if we're just gonna be paying this type of money for elected officials. And that speaker was definitely GWI and gambling while intoxicated, because that was not okay. So he needs a speeding ticket at least.